Good morning. Welcome to the premium public video forecast discussion for Friday, February 24th, 2023. As always on Fridays, we have a little bit of premium content put out there in the public so you can see what we do every day on the premium side of the membership. So as always, please like, share, subscribe the video, and if you're interested in more detailed information and also your own personal meteorologist where you could send emails to, definitely check out the premium consultant membership up top. So now we got that out of the way. Let's talk about our weather pattern over the next couple of days and also dive into some of the forcing parameters that are influencing our weather pattern. Right now, we have a cold front that has cleared off the coast, starting to clear out a lot of the low clouds and fog that has been in place in the morning hours, especially in central and southern New Jersey. It's still foggy out here in Freehold. Winds are coming in now from the west, northwest, around 10 to 20 miles per hour, with some gusts higher up to about 25 miles per hour, even 30 miles per hour up towards portions of the Catskills here. That's some pretty chilly air. We're pretty much seeing our high temperatures for the day. From here on out, temperatures are going to be falling throughout the day. So your high temperature you're seeing right now as you go out the door is essentially the best you're going to see. So definitely wear a nice, good, healthy jacket. You are going to need it. In the meantime, skies will slowly clear as the strong cold air transport takes hold. Now, again, we've talked about cold air transport before. This is a great indication of strong cold air transport where you have your isotherms all lined up here, and you can see the winds are all aligned to move perpendicular to the thermal gradient line, and you can see the heights as well doing the same. So essentially a good rule is this: when you start seeing everything line up like a box, like this rectangle here, this rectangle there, when you start seeing these rectangles packed in like this, that means that we have some pretty strong cold air transport. When it's more wobbly and you kind of have like almost like a hexagon type of scenario, it's usually weak temperature transport. So this is a great example of strong cold air transport, and boy, it is going to be strong for the rest of the day, and you're definitely going to notice a difference, especially if you're in southern New Jersey where we had temperatures in the 60s and 70s, and now you're going to be struggling to be in the 40s, and then falling into the 30s and eventually the 20s and possibly even the teens by tomorrow morning, all because of this cold air transport. And that's showing up pretty nicely here on our surface map with our low pressure system clearing the coast and our cold front dropping south from our weather tap source. And you can see a few lingering snow showers here. Again, a lot of these troughs are going to be rotating through the region, and a lot of that's driven by our upper level winds with our piece of the tropospheric polar vortex. This is a piece of it. A stronger piece is towards Asia, as we've talked about before. But this feature here is going to send all these little short waves marching right through portions of the Great Lakes in New England, and that's how we get this trough here. And so we're going to have to watch out for a few pesky snow showers, especially around the Poconos and Catskills. I'm not expecting much in the way of accumulation, maybe a dusting here and there, but definitely watch out, especially for the reduction of visibility. Now, another strong shortwave is going to be rotating through within this whole jet couplet, and that's going to open up the potential for a few snow showers tomorrow. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get a dusting here and there in a few locations. And for some locations, that might be the most snow you've seen so far this year. So you could pick up a half an inch on some car tops, for example, with some of these snow showers. In the meantime, take a look at this 500 millibar wind component. Actually, this is 250 millibars, pardon me. And this is very La Nina-like. And, we have our typical ridge around Florida and the Bahamas, and you have your nice trough over the west. This is all associated with the subtropical jet stream, and then your polar jet stream is under influence of this major stratospheric warming event that happened that blew apart the polar vortex but sent most of the pieces towards Asia and Europe. So we're not getting the full brunt of the influence here, but we're seeing some, and we're seeing some indication of high latitude blocking. Got a nice ridge building up towards the Arctic here over the Pacific. Nice ridge building up towards the Arctic over the Atlantic. But again, the alignment is just a little bit off. And as I usually discuss when it comes to winter weather, and for you snow lovers out there, when it comes to snowfall in the mid-Atlantic, especially the southern and northern mid-Atlantic, well, that pretty much covers all the mid-Atlantic, One little feature being off can make a huge difference in your forecast. That's why it's so difficult to forecast for these storms and make any type of declarative statements beyond 5 days. So just remember that when people start posting snow maps and whatnot. So let's take a look at some of the other data here. You can see on our visible satellite picture the colder, dry air building in, clearing out a lot of those low clouds. On the infrared satellite picture, you can see not much in the way of lifting here. Most of our lifting is associated with the subtropical jet stream right now. This right here is the cold air, not cloud cover, but the cold air. But what really stands out to me is the water vapor satellite picture. And wow, what a signature here with our La Nina signature. Very impressive ridge down here. And this feature here is what's blocking the ability for our polar vortex to drop further south into Hudson Bay and really transport a sustained cold air mass. So what you end up with really is more of a transient cold air mass. And this weekend's a perfect example. Tomorrow is going to be bone-chilling cold. Sunday is going to be 10, 15 degrees warmer. The cold air doesn't stick. It's what we call a transient pattern. Keeps on moving, keeps on grooving. So the upper level low swings on through, and this is all driven by La Nina. But for those of you who are sick of La Nina, I got some good news for you. It is dying. It is going away. And this right here is our satellite-based temperature anomalies. And I said that the CPC does a better job of picking up these observations and already showing the collapse. But I was expecting there to be a pretty rapid collapse in the satellite data that would follow. And that's exactly what has happened. If you want to go back, Nino 1+2, which is our most shallow and most volatile regime, has been very much signaling more of a El Nino-like signature here. But you typically don't use that as a basis. What you want to do is look at 3 and 3.4, because those are a little bit deeper, well, a lot deeper in many cases. It's more sustained, and it gives you a better idea of what's evolving. And in Nino 3, you can see that warming clearly taking place. This would be a warm neutral state. And in 3.4, this would be what we call a cold neutral state. So 3.4, where we get a lot of our ways of determining whether or not we have an El Nino or La Nina, that section finally has gone essentially neutral. I would say cold neutral, okay? So that's a sign that we're seeing the end of La Nina. And if you want to see further verification, I like to use the SOI as a way to study how the atmosphere is reacting to these changes. And we're still in La Nina conditions, but you're seeing the gradual decline of those conditions in both the seasonal and the monthly values here. So this is really good news to show that changes are on the way, and that the ideas that La Nina was going to fade as we go into spring. It was originally for midwinter, but that was delayed. It's finally happening. So yes, La Nina is finally dying. So those of you who've been begging for La Nina to disappear over the past 3 years, well, you're finally getting your wish. Bit delayed, bit unusual. Triple dip La Ninas are pretty rare, but it is happening. So that's certainly some good news. And of course, we all know about the stratospheric influence and the stratospheric warming. In fact, here, let me back in here. Let's see here. I think here it is. I mean, that is some major stratospheric warming. We had the first surge here, started to back off, and then here comes a second surge, just exploded, and all that warm air just ripped apart the polar vortex in the stratosphere. But what about the troposphere? Well, this is why when I saw the stratospheric warming event happening, why I was like, uh-oh, snow lovers are not going to be happy with me. And the reason why is this. Yes, it got nuked and blown apart. Yes, there's high latitude blocking developing. But look at the lower part here. This part is where we start to watch for tropospheric influences, right? And notice where the tropospheric influences are pretty much located. Yep, Russia, Eastern Europe. Not exactly the best news if you're looking for snowfall over North America. And what you end up really over North America is just a very weak signal showing up. And a lot of that signal, a lot of the focus of the coldest air is focused towards northern Quebec. The problem with it being focused over northern Quebec, well, let me pull up the winds here. Let's see if I can make this adjustment here. Okay, so when you have all your cold air focused up here in Quebec, and it gets transported towards the Atlantic, it doesn't get dropped down into portions of New England. So as a result, all your cold air is forced out into the Atlantic, and you don't get the strongest influence, and you don't get the thermal gradient needed, and you end up with displacement. And so what you end up with is the pattern we're going to be talking about. So again, here's our model guidance showing on the European the same idea. Okay, so we are in agreement with that. So when we take a look at our upper level winds during this time period, notice the focus of where our winds are being transported with these air masses off towards the Atlantic, and notice a very progressive pattern. You don't get a chance to lock in your troughs and ridges. Even at 850 millibars over the next 90 days, definitely very progressive, very changeable. Wind patterns are in place. At 500 millibars, we'll take a look first at the operational guidance, and you can use, based on what the WPC was saying this morning, you can use a mix of the GFS, the European, and the European ensembles, probably the GFS ensembles a bit too, and you can mix that together to create your general forecast. But overall, they're pretty much within the same idea of the going forecast. So you can see the evolution here of this weather pattern, and you're probably saying to yourself, Stephen, there's a 50-50 low. Lock in. Yes and no. The reason why this gets short-circuited is because of this, because this ridge gets displaced to the east, and so as a result, you allow yourself to have this ridge axis build up here. So what that means is that you get a storm track cutting right up towards, let's say, the central Great Lakes, and then a redevelopment towards the Gulf of Maine, towards Boston, east of Long Island. And you're going to see what that leads to. It leads to, in this scenario, your primary low pressure systems in these storm tracks are focused towards the Great Lakes, and your secondary low pressure system development, because of that block, is too weak. Kind of holds in the cold air, but not enough. And I'll show you examples of that. And again, this shows up pretty nicely here on the European ensembles. Now, we do start to see this type of pattern. This pattern is interesting because what this will introduce once we get into mid-March is that you'll get polar air masses coming in, but with a lack of snowpack in place and Pacific influences from the subtropical jet stream, you get a mixed air mass, which moderates very quickly. So you get a cold shot and it moderates real fast. So you're seeing that showing up really nice in the temperature anomalies here. Okay, very warm. All right, and this is all because of rapid moderation. Now, about 5 to 10 days ago, this was a colder solution. It was still slightly above normal, but not like this. This has moderated significantly in the forecast. Then we get towards the end of this forecast and we get into this new pattern. And yes, it's slightly below normal, but it's also by this point mid-March. So it looks like we're going to definitely have a chilly March. Mid-March is definitely going to be chilly. And very cold off towards the Rockies and Northern Plains. Sorry guys, you're still going to see snow up there. But this type of signal here is not the same significant signal as it would be in January and February, mid-February. If this signal is showing up in mid-February, I'd be on the snow train and let's go. Mid-March, I'm more on the cold rain and maybe some sleet and Scranton. Not fun. I'm ready for baseball. Not cool. So yeah, that's what we're seeing here with that signal. So when we take a look at our weather pattern for this weekend, again, very progressive pattern, very fast moving, a lot of short waves moving through. Then we're going to be keeping an eye on Monday. Premium members in the premium dashboard, I updated the impact map for Monday to Tuesday. Very general, but I've become a little bit more defined on where I'm expecting the ranges to be in terms of snowfall potential and ice potential. So definitely check that out in the premium dashboard. But you can see the overall theme here with this shortwave swinging its way through. And you can see the cold air transport come in for Saturday, but then rapidly leave. Right? It rapidly gets driven out in this pattern. Why? Because your primary low pressure system in this pattern is all focused towards the Great Lakes at 500 millibars, 700 millibars, and 850 millibars. And when it comes to precipitation types, the 850 millibar low position is extremely important to me. 700 millibar position gives me an idea of where the heaviest precipitation is going to be. 850 gives me an idea on the precipitation type. 500 gives me a basic idea on the overall storm structure. That's not always the case. It's not a hard rule, but it's a good rule to start with when it comes to forecasting. And this 850 low is primarily focused over the Great Lakes until the storm starts to redevelop towards the Gulf of Maine by Tuesday morning. And by that point, all your strong lifting is where? Well, the St. Lawrence River Valley and New England. So, what type of scenario is this? This is a scenario where you have cold air getting driven out and your precipitation is rapidly changing over rain from south to north. It's a tricky forecast for the New York City metro, not so much for the Philadelphia metro, rain. The northern interior, that's where I'm concerned about ice and snow, and especially over like locations like northern Connecticut, we could be looking at a pretty good significant snowfall, over 4 inches in this scenario. So we're definitely going to keep an eye on that. But the overall theme in this pattern is that your primary low pressure systems are all focused over the Great Lakes, and your secondary low pressure systems, that's that weak low that starts to form off the coast, is basically taking shape around Long Island and then heads up and intensifies by the time it gets into the Gulf of Maine. These type of storms typically lead to a real tease a couple days out for snow map lovers who like to put out snow maps, especially on the coastal plain, especially around New York City metro, especially around Long Island, where it suggests, hey, look, 2, 3, 4, 5 inches of snow. Then once you get closer to that forecast period, you get a better idea of how fast the warm air is pushing in. And with the primary low focus off to the west, that warm air transport is usually a lot faster than what's being modeled 5 to 7 days out. So what you end up with is this shift north, but in reality, all it is just a realization and a better understanding of how strong that warm air transport is. So the precipitation shield doesn't change. Just that the eroding of the cold air is much more realistic in the guidance. So you see the shift north of the snow shield in the snowfall forecast. So we're going to be keeping an eye on that, and that theme is going to be in place for our other storms as we move through the next 10 days. So here, let me jump right to the forecast. We'll zoom in, and let's talk about the next 7 days. So for today, our cold front clears through. Watch out for a few flurries. It's going to be chilly. Your high temperatures are basically now, and they will be falling through the 40s and 30s through the rest of the day. For tonight into tomorrow, high pressure system moves to the north of the region. Look for winds becoming light and variable. Temperatures will plummet into the mid-teens over the northern interior, upper teens to lower 20s along the coast. For tomorrow afternoon, look for an area low pressure to pass through the region with a trough, a few scattered snow showers. Watch out for some minor snowfall accumulation of dusting to maybe an inch in a few isolated locations. Again, keyword there is isolated. And most of that is going to be on cold surfaces, your grass, your bushes, your car tops. Very fast moving, but just be aware of it, especially if you're driving. Look for high temperatures tomorrow. It's going to be chilly. Upper 20s to lower 30s throughout the region. The good news is that this cold air does not stick around. So by Sunday, high pressure starts to exit, starts to move over the region and exit. Look for scattered cloud cover, wind starting to develop out of the southwest. Low temperatures still be chilly in the lower to mid 20s over the northern interior, upper 20s to lower 30s along the coast. High temperatures though will rebound into the mid to upper 40s over the interior, mid to upper 40s along the coast, and upper 40s to lower 50s in the Delaware River Valley. We're getting to that time of year where the Delaware River Valley really sticks out in terms of temperatures. On Monday, scattered cloud cover to start, increasing cloud cover throughout the day. Look for precipitation to develop towards the evening. Low temperatures on Monday will range from the lower to mid 20s over the northern interior, upper 20s to lower 30s along the coast. High temperatures will range from the lower to mid 40s throughout the region. Then our precipitation moves in the evening hours. I really like the idea of rain for the most part for the Philadelphia metro. New York City metro is going to be a bit of a wintry mix to start, but that will change over to rain too. The question is, how fast does it change over to rain? So we're still working on that timing. And then the Poconos, Catskills, Northwest New Jersey, Hudson River Valley, and Connecticut, that's where it's going to be a little bit more dicey with our precipitation and the precipitation type and how much snow and ice actually develops. A lot of this is based on what we call frontogenesis and how strong the lifting is. So with these factors, we're still going to work out that storm. But for those locations, this looks like a pretty significant precipitation event from Monday night into Tuesday morning. On Tuesday morning, the low pressure system still is starting to leave. Notice we still have our primary back here, our secondary here. They're both starting to intensify. This one has reached its peak. This one's starting to intensify. This will eventually take over as the primary as we move on through the day as the low pressure system leaves. So then by Tuesday afternoon, you just have a few lingering rain and snow showers. Low temperatures on Tuesday will range from the upper 20s to lower 30s over the northern interior, mid to upper 30s along the coast. High temperatures will range from the upper 30s over the interior and upper 30s to lower 40s along the coast. The temperature regime here is going to be dependent on how this storm develops, so don't be surprised if we see some changes in the forecast in terms of temperatures. But not exactly the best day on Tuesday, rather raw conditions out there. On Wednesday, high pressure will be in control, scattered cloud cover as expected. Low temperatures will range from the lower to mid 20s over the northern interior, upper 20s to lower 30s along the coast. High temperatures will range from the upper 20s to mid 30s over the northern interior, upper 30s to lower 40s along the coast. On Thursday, another low pressure system will approach with, again, a wintry mixed mess that we're going to be dealing with. Looks familiar, right? Same type of scenario. Primary over the Great Lakes, secondary over the coastal waters. Most likely a wintry mix over the interior. You change it over to rain along the coast. Just a raw, ugly day. But this one could be interesting for the interior because the cold air mass is a little bit stronger. So we're looking at mid to upper teens over the northern interior, lower to mid 20s along the coast. High temperatures will rise rapidly into the upper 30s to lower 40s over the northern interior, upper 30s to lower 40s in the New York City metro, but mid 40s to lower 50s in the Philadelphia metro. And that really depends on the location of the warm front before we get the secondary low pressure system to develop. And then on Friday, scattered cloud cover with some rain and snow showers we're going to keep an eye on. Low temperatures in the lower to mid 30s. High temperatures will range from the mid to upper 50s. That's your forecast discussion for today. I hope you enjoyed this premium public video discussion. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful weekend. And as always, stay safe out there.